to Survive in Advance on the Gruely True Sports Network. Survive in Advance is brought to you by Replenishing Care, the future of sports medicine. To find out more about all the products they offer, go to thegruelytruth.net, click on the banner at the top of the page. I am your co-host for Survive in Advance, Mike Goodpaster. Now I would like to introduce my co-host, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Hey, Michael. I'm doing great. It's Friday. We made it through another great week. Say some of the best sports news or most interesting sports news for the end of the week. But I got a question for you. Do you actually have that intro memorized, or do you read it off a teleprompter?
Memorized.
Yeah, memorized? That's
Yeah.
pretty damn good.
Well, I do it like 5 days a week.
And how many shows?
I don't know. Not all of them are sponsored by Replenishing Care, but I'm pretty much.
Well,
I'm brilliant. So I mean, I hate to toot my own horn, but I have a.
Well, I would agree with that. I would classify you as the genius category. I'd put you up in that Mensa type environment.
Yeah, well, I did when I was like in third grade get graded or tested as 162 IQ. I just wanted to bring that up.
How'd you do at Indiana State?
I did fine. How did you do at Indiana? Not too good from your spelling.
Well, I didn't take grammar. I didn't take writing classes, lit classes, anything like that. I played away from my weaknesses.
So you're telling me they didn't have English classes in college when you were there, or had I guess they were probably just in the stages of formulating the English language as far back as you.
That's a good question. I don't know if general studies, if I even had to take a lit class or not.
See, I don't even remember taking an algebra class in high school or college.
I had to take probability statistics because of business major, so you had to take that, and you had to take finance and accounting, which was a pain in the butt.
Well, at Indiana State, I was a sports studies major, so I had like basic tennis. I had all the tougher classes.
So you were right in the middle of plantation education.
Yeah,
nation,
20 years later, my ass would have been a major in Swahili.
We got you and Rashad McCants would have been.
Yeah, we'd have been chilling in Swahili class with somebody obviously doing our homework for us, but
and selecting your classes for you and things of that nature.
Yeah. I'd have been fine with that because I wasn't that interested in going to class anyways. Maybe if it had been Swahili, I'd have showed up once just to see what the hell it was, though.
What on earth? That has got to be one of the most undignified things to tell athletes they have to take Swahili. Well, yeah. It's a curriculum that I don't know. I probably shouldn't go down that road.
Don't you think it's kind of undignified to tell an athlete that he has to take basic tennis?
Yeah, exactly.
But it was a great class because all you had to do was show up at the end of the semester and play a tournament, and that determined your grade. And the good thing was I had been the number one singles player at my high school for 2 years, so it wasn't like I'd never played before. So an A was pretty easy because I think like my first round match, so I could pass the class, I was playing like an 18-year-old girl who weighed like 450 pounds and smelled bad.
Yeah, I remember you had to take some physical activity classes at IU, I remember, and I did bowling and billiards.
Okay. Well,
how about that?
I mean, bowling, there's nothing wrong with bowling or shooting pool because you know what? You can use your business degree with shooting a pool if you go hustle.
Yeah, they were only one credit hour. I mean, it wasn't like it was a 3 credit hour course. It was one semester, 1 credit hour. I think you had to take like 2 semesters of some type of athletic and playing for Bobby Knight.
Did you ever go to practice and Coach Knight stopped practice and say, "All right, Risley, why were you not at your billiards class today?"
I never missed my billiards class. I liked it. That may be the one class I never missed.
Maybe you should have just majored in billiards.
I'm probably be making more money than I'm making right now. So.
Is that a shot at me? All right, guys.
No.
Let's go ahead. Let's move on with the hot topic of the last 24 hours is elite 18-year-old basketball players will soon have another alternative to playing a one-and-done year at college where they make no money and the colleges profit big time off of them. The NBA announced Thursday that beginning next year, select players would be able to earn $125,000 to play in its developmental league, the G League, for a year before entering the NBA draft. What's your take on this, Steve?
At first, it's like, boy, it's a nice slap in the face by the NBA to the NCAA. I think it's realistic. It's an option. I'm not sure it's as good an option as we all thought it was initially. If you read some of the fine print, they haven't defined a lot of the rules yet, a lot of how things are going to operate. They kind of just came out and said they're committed to doing this. I was reading through this morning. We don't know if there's going to be a draft or an assignment. What's the team level commitment afterwards? There are other problems in it, but what it is what I like about it is this. It's an alternative to kids that don't really want to go to college but want to play basketball. And it's a one-year program, basically. It's only a one-year deal. It's not just solely for high school kids. It's for any kid who's never been drafted in the NBA. If you've never been drafted, you would be eligible for this program if you're considered and deemed an elite player. It's targeted and aimed at high school players, but it's from the readings I've gotten so far from the NBA's release, it's not limited to just those players. It is an invitation-only thing at this point. There's no definitive answer yet as to how you're going to be invited, what level is going to be invited. They gave an example of a player who on ESPN's ranking was ranked number 7 and is still in college, and another player who was ranked number 42.
Are you talking about the Chase Jeter, Donovan Mitchell comparison?
Yes, yeah. Chase Jeter, Donovan Mitchell, where Chase Jeter was ranked number 7 by ESPN, and is still playing college ball, where Donovan Mitchell was number 42, and maybe he might be low enough he wouldn't be invited to play yet. He's a rising star in the NBA now. So there's flaws in the process, but it's another opportunity. And we'll leave it at that, and we'll further our discussion. I don't want to take up the whole time frame, but what do you think of it? I mean, just talking in general, then we'll get into some specifics, because there are problems with it, too. So what is your general thoughts on it?
There are problems with it, but a kid like Romeo Langford or any of the big-time kids that come out, I mean, it gives them a chance if they don't want to go to college. And also, I don't think it's going to stop cheating. Maybe the lower players will get paid now, what the higher players are getting paid. But when I look at it, yeah, I think you got to look at who will be afforded the opportunity. Where do they cut that off? What G League teams will these players end up on? The other thing is this. You're basically going to have 18-year-old kids coming in and playing in a league with 25-year-olds, which is a higher level of basketball than what you're getting in college basketball. So that could also hurt these kids when it comes to draft time. If all of a sudden they would have been a superstar at Duke, but they go to the G League and they have trouble against grown men, which I know that's what the NBA wants, though, because the NBA has used the NCAA as their minor league system to vet players with this one-year rule forever. So it's kind of the same thing here. I think in the end it could hurt the players a little bit, but I don't think there's anything wrong with paying somebody if they have an ability that most people don't. I don't see why you shouldn't be paid for it. I don't see why the Dukes, Kentuckys, and Kansas can profit off these kids. These kids at least will get to profit a little bit now.
Right. And the program as it's lined out by the NBA, again, everything is pretty well at 10,000-foot level at this point. But they're talking about a program that involves basketball skills development from NBA people, from NBA skills developers. So they'll be regimented there. It's talking about life skills mentoring and coaching from people, business people, other people tied to the NBA to teach them how to manage themselves with that kind of money, things of that nature. And it also allows the student athlete to make money off his likeness. Essentially, he can get a shoe contract if he can get one. So if Langford say, we'll use him as an example just because we know his name, but he could then sign his own contract with Adidas and not have to worry about any of the under the table money or anything that comes out like that. He can cut his own deal with any clothing companies he wants to, or anything of that nature, whatever deal he wants to sign. I think his value probably goes down. I do think there's a big risk in the fact that they'll be immediately going in from high school to play. The G League consists of a lot of guys who have NBA experience.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of guys that like, Thomas Bryant from Indiana had bounced back and forth between the Lakers G League program and the Lakers regular team all season long last year. Now I think he's in Washington now. He left the Lakers program. The Lakers program probably cut him loose. But there's guys that they'll be playing against that will have NBA experience, and that will create an opportunity where it will make it tougher for some of them to excel. Another thing that came up, and I'm sure you read about this too, is there'll be some resentment there because the average salary in the G League for players is about $35,000. So now you got these high school kids coming in here all of a sudden making $125,000, which is up to 4 times as much as some of the G League players are already making. There's going to be a little bit of targets on their back and things of that nature. The other thing I did like about the program was that the NBA is stipulating that it will create a scholarship program for these players that will allow them to get their college education either through the process of while they're playing or after their playing days are over. They will create a scholarship fund available to the players that are invited to participate in this program will be able to tap into and go back and get their education should they decide to do that.
Well, my question is this, though, in the end. Will these players, the elite players, actually want to take this route? When you look at it, the $125,000 offered by the G League sounds great, but remember, it's still $75,000 less than DePaul allegedly offered Brian Bowen.
Yeah.
High school players have always had the option to play in the G League. The only thing that really changed here is the pay. The perfect example is Darius Bazley, who decided to join the G League instead of honor his commitment to Syracuse. He was only getting $35,000. Now he could get $125,000. And Bazley ultimately decided to drop out of the G League and then train year-round for the draft. Why is that? I say because it's hard to look good against grown men in a G League.
Right.
This could simply be solved by getting rid of the stupid-ass rule that you have to sit out a year before you can go to college or before you can go to the NBA.
Well, and the NBA is they reiterated Adrian Wojciechowski, is that how you spell his last name? He still is under the guise and reporting that the NBA has made it clear that by the year 2022 they're going to eliminate the age limit for NBA players.
But why would you just do that right now?
Right now, right? Why would you not do it right now? I think the reason is this, Mike. I think that they want to keep some restrictions in place because they want to vet these players.
Yeah,
the owners do not want to take a Romeo Langford and say, he's a kid that he's out of high school, he's a heralded prodigy. We're going to have to sign him to a $4 million contract, and then Romeo Langford's a bust. They would rather just dump out $125,000 to these guys. They spend more of that on meal money on a road trip for the NBA teams. If they go on a 4 or 5 day road trip, there's more than $125,000 dumped out for that. So that $125,000 is chump change to an NBA team, as opposed to giving a kid a 4-year, $15 million contract, which is probably about a standard rookie contract, somewhere in that vicinity, and committing that kind of money to them because they'll want guaranteed money in those first 4 years. And they're only at 125 if Langford busts entirely. So I don't think that the NBA is willing to give up its vetting process yet. And now they just created another option to vet because I still think the super elite players, my opinion is the super elite players will go ahead and take the college route because there's still a lot of perks about playing college basketball. All right, you're playing in front of huge crowds. And you probably read the same articles I read this morning. It sounds like you did. You're flying around in private jets. You're getting wined and dined by people. You're huge crowds. Your games are on television. Your recognition factor is going way up. If you're a super elite player, I think this thing falls more in the category where you're going to see more players go, or what we would call the tier 2 elite players. If you get what I'm saying, I think the upper echelon are probably still going to get funded somehow as they are now. And I think what we found through the trial is it's the tip of the iceberg. We're seeing a little bit of smoke from where there's probably a massive fire of money being laundered out there to players, but I don't think the super elite players will jump on this that much. I think they'll take their year in college, go have fun, play against people that they can shine against, do the college experience for a year, and then prove themselves and make sure they've got the talent level they need, and then jump into the NBA draft and go for the big money. It is a risk to go into the G League, like you said. You're all of a sudden 18 years old, and you're playing against 25 years old, which is the average age of the G League players. And these are developed men who've been playing the big game at that level for several years. So I'm not sure you'll see the super elite players really take advantage of this that much.
Yeah, and then you've got the question that's been asked by everybody is, shouldn't this money go to the WNBA? I've actually read.
I haven't heard that question.
SB Nation. There is a writer
I'm on
there.
SB Nation right now.
Named Natalie Weiner or Weiner. I don't know which one it is, but she's complaining that they need to put this money into women's NBA, and it's not fair for an 18-year-old male to make $125,000, and that's like 3 times what the best women's player makes.
Does it do us any good to go down that road and get into that discussion? I mean,
it's on here. It is something to talk about because when you look at
the first question I had is, are they going to offer the same program for the women? Is there going to be a
they're not.
Same contract? Yeah, I know they're not. Yeah, I realistically, the WNBA, I'm not sure what the actual mission is of the WNBA in relation to the NBA. I think it was the
NBA did it to shut people up.
Okay, that's probably the best way to put it. I understand that most WNBA franchises are a drain on the NBA franchise, a financial drain. That very few of them profit or make any money. That for the most part, that they are a financial drain. But it is a community thing. It is a perception thing, and it's something that the NBA did, which was smart on their part to do it. They're one of the few leagues that have the ability to do it. Because really, you can't have a viable women's NFL program. In baseball, I don't think you could have a viable women's Major League Baseball program. But basketball, there is enough talent out there, and it's a game that can be played by both male and female at a high level that it could be done. And they did it. But I don't think that it would be a good investment for the NBA to put any more money into the WNBA than it already does. And that may be sexist, and we may get nasty comments back on that, but I think in a business sense, it is what it is.
Well, I don't think we will. But, yeah, Sporting News is reporting on it, too. When I look at this, I just don't see – I know they can vet the players, but NBA-wise, I don't know. I think unless they've really got their ducks in a row, which if they did, I would think they would come out with something stating their mission and why they were doing it. And on the outside, it looks great because the players get paid, but how does this affect the draft? I think there's 27 G League teams, which means not every G League team has a or not every NBA team has a
NBA team has G League, right?
So when you do this, I mean, how do they get drafted? How are those players treated if they're just there for a year? If you're the coach of that team and you're affiliated with an NBA team, let's say you're coaching the team that's affiliated with the Lakers, he may not be a Laker someday. How does that affect how you coach him?
Right, and those were I found in all the articles I read, including the NBA's own press release about this, and the SB Nation website, which I've been on all morning looking at it. They seem to have a lot of it ahead of the game here. There's no mention of any of the fine print details of how it's all going to operate yet. I think the thing the NBA wanted to do was throw this out there while the trial was going on. That's when they were going to get their biggest publicity out of it. Because the shoe company trial, as we call it, seems to be winding down at this point in time, where most of the publicity of this. I don't think that the NCAA part of it has even fired up yet. This is going to force the NCAA. The shoe company trials are going to force the NCAA to do some investigating and to do its own trial, so to speak, right now. They're going to have to get into it at this point now too. So, and that hasn't even begun to start yet. They're going to have to make somebody a sacrificial lamb for what comes out of this trial. But I think for the NBA to release this information right now makes them look good. Do you think that there's a little bit of pushback there because the NBA feels like the NCAA did not consult them on the Condoleezza Rice panel recommendations and actions that they took off of that?
Well, I think this. I think that may be part of it, but I think the biggest part of it right now is this. With the NCAA corruption trial going on, this is a hot topic. And to all of a sudden do this, I mean, it's the best time to do it because you're going to get the most mileage out of it possible because people are already talking about college players and whether they should be paid or not. So the NBA, I think, drops this at the perfect time.
Right. Yeah, and I think timing. Yeah, I think that's why they released it without having all the details ironed out. I think they came up with this idea a week and a half ago, and I'm sure it took longer than that.
I think this idea was probably floated a couple years ago. Because let's face it, when you talk about the WNBA, the G League has about the same notoriety. I mean, nobody's watching the G League either. So I think when you're doing this, and the reason you do it here, not the WNBA, is there's nobody you can sign to the WNBA to make it bigger. But with the G League, if you're putting guys like Langford or the top 10 players, then people will watch because in this day of social media, that's why they're giving these kids so much money, is they have a name and they have a following. So if you take that name and following to the G League, then all of a sudden, the revenue for the G League goes through the roof possibly.
Big time.
Yeah. It's perfect because the G League, to me, is on equal footing with the WNBA right now because I don't pay attention to either one of them.
No, it's a financial drain to the team too, but it's a financial drain. It's a reservoir pool for them to keep talent on hand and pay. It's kind of like a practice squad in the NFL. They're able to keep X number of players around. That's kind of what the G League was kind of set up for, in my eyes. It was set up kind of like a practice squad out there, keep guys in shape, keep them in the system, keep them playing, keep them game ready. Not going to be a player who's going to come in and make a major impact to a program all the time, but you can't come in and fill a roster spot and know that you can put you in a game and you're not going to puke on yourself. I see that, but you start bringing some of these elite college players in, all the Romeo Langfords, all of a sudden sponsorship goes up, attendance goes up, possibly at that point, TV contract comes out and the G League gets itself on TV, starts getting some television revenue.
They're on TV now, but I don't think they're getting any revenue for it.
Where are they on TV? Where are they on
they're
TV?
On TV.
NBA channel?
I've seen the games before. I think the NBA channel does. There might be an ESPN thing that does it. I don't think they're making money off of it. Yeah. So when you look at it, though, last year I remember when IU was hot and heavy after Romeo Langford, and I wanted to watch Romeo Langford stuff. If you go to those highlight films, they'd have 10 million views on them.
Right.
But
yeah, no, I think the big winner in this whole thing will be the NBA. I think they turn the G League if they get the buy-in from the players. I'm not sure they're going to get the buy-in from the players. A couple of the articles I read, stated they didn't think the buy-in was going to be there. That the upper echelon players would go ahead and probably still opt for a year at college, for all the reasons we've already stated. The money's not really that great. The amount of travel, again, they talk about riding on buses a lot, playing in crappy gyms, not having as nice of equipment to work with as the colleges provide for you. I still think that it won't stop the cheating in the NCAA. And I don't think it's a big enough deal that it'll force the NBA's hand or the NCAA's hand to do anything differently. I think the NCAA will say, fine, let them go. We'll be fine. We'll still fill our rosters, and we'll still put a good product on the floor.
We talked about NCAA corruption, and, of course, that first trial is coming to a close. My question to you is this. How much trouble could Kansas be in if the NCAA is legit? And the reason I say that is this. The federal government considers Kansas to be a victim in the college basketball corruption trial underway in New York. The NCAA, I think, should see the details of this case very differently. And this is something I haven't really seen brought up anywhere, but they have a contract with Adidas, correct?
Correct.
So they have a
They're
contractual...
they're allegedly Adidas' number one target school.
Okay,
according to Adidas, they consider Kansas their number one basketball program to be involved with.
So my question is this. They have a contractual relationship with the school. Does that make Adidas a booster? And if they're a booster, Kansas is responsible for this. I mean, there has to be some obligation on the school to assure that it is clear with corporate sponsors that they're expected to follow rules. So how is Adidas, if they are paying money to Kansas in a deal with Kansas, and Adidas violates NCAA rules, how are they not a booster for the program?
Well, that was the question that I've read into that really hasn't, you're right, it hasn't been discussed a lot, but by the federal government's rules, to be a victim, it has to be perpetrated upon you without you knowing something was going on.
Yeah, but even if you don't know, if that's a booster of the program, I mean, we've seen this at SMU, we've seen this at a lot of places where because a booster or a car salesman or a carpenter with a big business wants to give players handouts, the school gets in trouble for that. Why is Adidas any different than a shoe dealership or a...
Well, I think because Adidas has a legitimate business contract with the University of Kansas athletic department, so they would not be a booster. They would be a sponsor or a partner, the same as any. Then you can say anybody that advertises through the university at the game, puts a banner up in the stadium, or has the rolling scroll down the scoreboard would be a booster. I think if you have, and again, I'm not a lawyer, Mike. I'm speaking of just what I saw on LA Law in 1980s when it was on TV. That if there's a contract there, you're not a booster. I think you're a corporate partner, and you've entered into a legal binding contract with them to provide goods and services for remuneration, or give remuneration for goods and services. I'll pay you to wear our equipment. I don't think that's a booster thing. A booster thing is if the guys at UCLA, the rich guys, I can't remember the guy's name that was famous for doing, Sam Gilbert, goes around and owns half the car dealerships and just starts handing players keys to cars under the table. There's no contract there. That was all done, and it was done allegedly without. It was done allegedly without John Wooden knowing it. Allegedly without.
No, it's not allegedly without John Wooden knowing it, because John Wooden said he knew about it. I mean, John Wooden admitted to it. I don't know if he knew about it after the fact or during the fact.
Yeah.
But at some point he knew about it. And my question is this then. So if they're under contract and being paid, they're not responsible. But if they're not under contract, and see, because the thing that makes no sense there to me is this. Somebody you barely know could do something not under contract, and you could get in trouble for it. But you could be under a $200 million contract to a company. They could violate a rule and you not be held accountable. And to me, that doesn't make much sense.
No, none of it makes sense. None of it makes sense at all. But it's the way it operates. And I'm sure there's fine print in the contract that says the money cannot be distributed to the students wearing the shoes. That the money's paid to the athletic department for the athletic department to use as they see fit, but it cannot be given back to the players. And the players, I'm sure that has to be, NCAA requires that that's written into the contract. And that's where the victimization comes into, where by federal law, to be a victim is, again, I'm repeating myself, I know, but to be a victim, you have to have no knowledge that this is going on. And I think that was the $10 question that was going to come up in these trials was, are you kidding me and telling me that coaches and university presidents don't know that this is going on? Now you're getting text messages from cells to carrier pigeons for Adidas talking about delivery money and talking about bringing players to the table, talking about Kansas being their number one priority, and I'll get you, everybody. And, yeah, we failed on DeAndre Ayton, whatever his name was, We failed there, but we won't fail on the next one. Now, you're telling me that Self doesn't know what's going on? So Kansas is no longer a victim. Kansas is a willful participant, of which then the NCAA has to take action against Kansas by their own rules and bylaws. Now, are they going to do that?
No, they probably won't.
I think they'll have to. I think they'll have to make an example out of somebody.
I
think if they don't,
Kansas.
It's almost why I think, because if you notice what's been interesting about the trial is that the judge has been very strict about letting no evidence in that puts any blame or has anything to do really with the NCAA. They kept all of that out, and I don't know if that's some under-the-table collusion with the federal government and the NCAA. I don't know, but it seems odd to me that the root of all this money laundering is college basketball or college athletics, football and basketball. Yet the judge is allowing none of that to be used as evidence, and he can't, like some of the transcripts from the testimony from some of the text messaging was not allowed in as evidence, and yet the whole case is based on the fact that the universities were victims of the shoe companies, therefore they're guilty.
Yeah, and I think from looking at this, there's not much doubt that Bill Self is wrong here, and Bill Self did something wrong. Now the question is, will Bill Self have to pay for it or not? And I mean, yesterday the defense attorney, said that $20,000 payment that Self requested to Sylvia D'Souza. Now we don't know if that's true or not, but it's the NCAA. So chances are, where there's smoke, there's fire, and he knew and he did it, and that's just the way it is. Kansas fans will stick their heads in the ground and act like their guy would never do that, and they're above everything, but it's just usually not true.
I think in that aspect of it, I think Kansas gets made an example of somehow.
Well, hopefully, and hopefully they'll do something with Duke and North Carolina. Because I think those are the two that need to be taken down. Just from watching what they posted, watch what's went on there. I mean, they need to take a few of them down.
Well, that's what's interesting, though, is it's only been Adidas. There's been no conversation yet about Nike or Under Armour.
Well, is that coming in the next two trials?
Yeah, well, that's the speculation, is that it's coming in the next two trials, that Nike and Under Armour will be implicated. That might be why you start seeing some posturing from Krzyzewski and Roy Williams and Calipari, because those are all big Nike schools.
Well, I think you've already seen that from Krzyzewski and Williams. And Calipari's been in so much trouble before, he will probably just act like nothing's going on.
Calipari will just say it's another day at the office.
Yeah, well, maybe he could lose the one banner that's still standing that he won. Because they took them down everywhere else.
Yeah.
All right, Steve. We got anything else you want to discuss?
No. I just congratulations to the Boston Red Sox on making it to the World Series. Convincing win last night over Houston, knocking them out. We've got Los Angeles with a one-game lead over Milwaukee playing tonight to see if they're going to join them, or if we're going to have a two-game schedule. With a two-game playoff here with Milwaukee heading in. So other than that, I don't think there's much more going on in sports. Interesting to see when the details come out on this high school thing. I think it was a lot more hype. I don't think there'll be a lot of top upper echelon players in the end that will take advantage of this. I think that there's probably better opportunity to make money the way the system works right now. And there's too much risk reward involved in the whole process. So we'll have to hear the details of how it all plays out.
All right, Steve. If you like Survive in Advance, we're here every day, Monday through Friday. We'll be back around noon live for Panic Monday with Anthony Servino Monday afternoon around 1 o'clock. You can catch Steve and Lucas on the golf show, which will be up at 10 o'clock tonight. So make sure you check that out. It would have been up sooner, but Steve kept texting me about it, and it got on my nerves, so I figured I'd just wait.
Well, it's better than what happened last week when it didn't get put up at all because we didn't
No,
text you.
I don't even know what you're talking about, Steve. You must be deranged or something because of that old
Okay.
age. Old age is setting in,
you're
Steve. Right. It didn't happen.
Okay.
But make sure you check out Steve and Lucas on the Golf Show tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern Time on agruelingtruth.net. You can hear all of our shows on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.